Want to start 11 o'clock?
Yes. So very good morning, a very warm welcome to all of you, the students, the faculty, staff, those who are with us. I feel great, honored to introduce our guest, starting from Professor Nagadevara, a former professor, dean at IIM Bangalore, and he's like every student in the area of decision science would love to be part of his classroom lectures. A PhD from Iowa State, and more than 30 years he has contributed to teaching research. Along with that, we have Dr. Jai Ganesh from is an innovation leader or a digital transformation leader. More than close to 2 decades, he started from the SMAC and then right now leading the industry from AI and quantum computing, PhD from IIM Bangalore. And then he's also a member of Forbes Group Technologies. And then we have Professor Parthasarathy Ramachandran. More than, you can say, close to 2 decades, he has extensively served the interdisciplinary research areas, start from water to revenue management, water resource management, and PhD from Oklahoma State University and master's from there. So I really honored. Along with that, our director, Professor Chansekar, again, like for 30 years, mixed with the public sector or the academic institute, he has taken leadership positions and spearheaded the vision of leading the institute to the greater height. So that's what at the all about our guest. Now I briefly talk about why we are here, and I'll just share one PPT, and I'll close that PPT with a small video clip that what we are trying to do here in this IDeAL or Interdisciplinary Decision Science and Analytics Lab. So the motivation lies there, certainly with IIM Act 2017, which is focusing on how the national priority goals can be addressed by establishing center of excellence there in these institutes. Now, when you talk about this to serving the largest of the society, we tried to touch upon some of those important aspects. Certainly, if I quote Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the USSR, that we need a new economic model. The planet is overburdened with the resources. Society is moving, and the more the digital transformation or the revolution is happening, resources are overburdened, and the cities are again overburdened with the population increase. So what and how this whole what you call as a society 5.0 should be addressed. Now, the one question that is there, are we looking for a niche problem, or we are looking for a problem that is already existing and a scalable solution? So our focus largely is there on the problems related to maybe healthcare or natural resource management in the beginning. The problems are already there. We have seen in last 2 years in pandemic that it is not something, definitely people are talking about the vaccination or vaccine research. But what about the hospital management? Maybe the overwhelming system is unable to meet the demand or the requirement of serving the society. Talking about moving the patient from one hospital to another hospital. Talking about the testing facility. Do we devise any new way that we can increase the testing facility so that we can have a more test related to? So these are the problems which essentially talking about the scalable solution. That's what the core of this IDeAL to establish. The initial thrust areas would be healthcare, health policy, certainly the natural resource management related to water, land, and energy, cyber physical systems, because as we talk about society 5.0, we cannot talk without cyber physical systems, and then computational public policy. Now, the public policy often would discuss by the household surveys and other, but now because of cyber physical system, the data is coming from various channels, and then these machine learning models could help us to talk about those public policy issues from the computational aspect. So this is what the thrust area in the beginning. And then how we are talking about in terms of establishing a knowledge center that the students or the PhDs and others will come. When it comes to knowledge sharing, then the other institutes, peer institutes, or the industry or the government organization where the knowledge sharing or capacity building is possible. And the third is definitely related to advisory, where jointly the government and the industry can look for a common research project of 2 years or more in that timeline. So this is what the overall, where we want to bring the industry, academia, and also the government, the federal, state, where they can part of these problems, where we have talked about in the beginning, these thrust areas of those scalable solutions. Now, how the overall overview, I want to sum it there, and then we'll play maybe 1 minute of video. Infrastructure, so we have an infrastructure, a nice computing facilities. We are going on the blended mode, one which is a static computational facility with the machines here. And then if required, we can go and lease out on the cloud services. Then there will be researchers, PhD students, RAs with the project and sons. When you talk about technology, largely we'll focus on the open source technologies like Python and R, but nonetheless, we'll also look for some of the technologies and platform provided by like a MATLAB or AMPL for the optimization and statistical learning modeling. The last is the collaboration. Without a collaboration, this is not possible. So collaboration with the institute, organizations, faculties, and others could be part of that, where we'll reach to the objective that we set in the beginning. Now, the roadmap that we are looking forward is like every 3 years, there will be the analysis that how we are meeting our goals, and every 3 years, maybe those thrust areas can also be changed. So that's what the overall about this lab, how we are taking forward. This is a small video clip that is going to played by our staff. Yeah, please.
The Interdisciplinary Decision Sciences and Analytics Lab, IDeAL, is a center of excellence set up at the Indian Institute of Management, Visakhapatnam. This lab is dedicated to academic research, industrial consultancy, product development, and training to support interdisciplinary research using innovations of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, graphic analytics, game theory, Internet of Things, pervasive computing, and others. IDeAL is keeping mathematical optimization and data science as the core in the approach of solving interdisciplinary problems faced by India and other emerging economies.
This is brief about IDeAL. Now I request Professor Chandrasekhar to give his opening remark, and then.
Thank you, Shiv. No, I feel quite privileged and honored to be part of this August gathering. I am not from the domain, so it's not that I can contribute in addition to whatever you have already said. I'm quite actually keen to listen to the experts there, and let me say once again that it's a great opportunity to connect with two distinguished personalities, one from IISc and one from industry. And I was looking at Dr. Jay Ganesh's work when I go through the work that he has been doing in terms of industry relevant solutions, trying to bring out creative disruptions in some of the areas that Shiv highlighted, working at the cross section of mathematics, statistics, industrial engineering, operations research, psychology, economics, computer science, etc., to drive innovation and deliver value. And I see that he has patents, over 4 granted patents, 20 patent applications, and published a large number of papers in leading peer-reviewed journals and conferences. From his earlier experience in Cognizant as Director SMAC Solutions and as Principal Research Scientist for Infosys, head of their Pervasive Computing Institute, he has huge amount of experience. And I'm sure why I am saying all this is we do look forward to benefiting from the expertise of the gentleman over here, whom we have invited to be part of this brief event. So while Shiv has the passion, Shiv has the kind of academic grounding, it requires the knowledge and wisdom of elders like all of you, so that we are able to build on the knowledge base that we have and look at solutions which could quote unquote be transformational in nature. Because in similarly, if I have to look at the profile of Professor Parthasarathi Ramachandran, again, I feel quite privileged to be connecting to him via this platform, thanks to Shiv. As Shiv said, bachelor's and degree from University of Madras, master's and doctoral degrees from Oklahoma State University, and as chairman of the Department of Management Studies there, looking at demand management of scarce resources, revenue management, and discrete optimization. Again, something which I think Shiv and his colleagues here at IIM Bangalore have a lot of commonality with. At IIM Visakhapatnam, we have a decision sciences group, which has about 4 faculty members, and a production and operations management group, which has about 5 faculty members. So between them, 9 of them, it's quite a, in addition to the others that we may have in, for example, in economics, we have a health economist, etc. So when Shiv is talking about predictive modeling, etc., the intent of IIM Visakhapatnam is to bring all these faculty members to work together in an interdisciplinary space and under your guidance and under your handholding support, so that the team could move forward. And we actually welcome, because we are a very small institute in age as far as IISc and other big institutions like Infosys or Emphasis are concerned. We are quite small and young in that age. So we would be quite happy to look at the privilege and prospect of shaking hands with you. So we do look forward to the collaboration, even the ideation part extending beyond this meeting today. One of the focus areas that Shiv is keen to work on, and Visakhapatnam is what we call as an aspirational district, a backward district. The present government calls them aspirational districts. And we have that opportunity of contributing to the development of the region, both in the social and economic sense. So the problems that Shiv is keen on working are related to health and nutrition in the area. And he has already developed that modeling for the pandemic and developed a dashboard which could predict. With some success, he has done that. He has also published his work. The way he is trying to look at, and obviously we will benefit much from your guidance as we go along, is how do you bring the entire ecosystem of health onto one platform? Like there are hospitals, whether they are primary health centers or community health centers or tertiary health facilities. There are insurance agents, there are diagnostic laboratories, there are pathology laboratories, there are doctors, there are pharmacies available. Now, how do we optimize the resources, and how do you ensure delivery of service at the least cost, in the least cost and most efficient model to the prospective or the potential beneficiaries, which are the common citizens, particularly those belonging to the disadvantaged sections and those who are economically challenged. These solutions could be of use to them. And as a public institution committed to public purpose, working in the larger public interest and working towards larger public good, I think solutions of this kind that Dr. Jay Ganesh has pioneered or Professor Ramachandran is working on, these would be of interest to us, Professor Parthasarathi Ramachandran. So I do look forward to being the beneficiary of your guidance in future too. And I'm sure Shiv and his colleagues would be quite gung-ho if you could spare some time in future, kind of to help us chart our way forward on as we call the reason for existence of this institution, particularly in this region called Visakhapatnam and in around this region, which in fact, if you don't look for an instance at Visakhapatnam, the entire area around there is a tribal area, heavily backward area. So if Shiv can bring some amount of difference to the lives of these people, in and around this region, we would actually feel that our mandate is fulfilled. So not just the pure management science that we may teach in the classroom to the young PGP students, we are looking at a wider canvas where we could work on problems and provide perhaps solutions which could be affordable and accessible to a larger mass of people. I'll stop here, and as I said, I once again want to really express our sincere gratitude to the three of you, and do look forward to your blessings as we move forward. Shiv?
Thank you, Professor Chandrasekhar. Now, I would request Professor Parthasarathy just to just briefly, you can say, or at the idea level, to talk about the current research on interdisciplinary aspect of decision sciences. I just request you to deliver your speech, and we'll move forward.
Thank you, Shiv, and thank you, Professor Chandrasekhar, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the major challenges and kind of the roadmap for research in this area. Kind of what I'm going to be talking about is in general kind of applicable to all the areas where you're kind of driving decisions based on data. So whether we call it decision science, analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, I think these are all kind of enmeshed with each other in some way. But ultimately, it is kind of arriving at better decisions driven by data. I'm kind of glad to see that kind of such a research center has come up with focus on making kind of changes or kind of having an impact on the immediate surroundings rather than kind of just looking at kind of theoretical issues in these areas. So I think that is something which is quite heartening. So to kind of deliver the kind of positive social impact, the use of these techniques and tools, I think it's been kind of talked about a lot nowadays. Kind of simple Google search will kind of throw out does things like AI for social good. There is so much of importance that is being paid, kind of attention is being given to this area. So there are kind of high profile success cases. In the commercial space, we have seen kind of the impact of AI, machine learning, decision sciences for a longer time, but kind of these newer areas, in the area of, let's say, speech recognition or kind of self-driving vehicles and so on, which depend on these tools and techniques significantly, right? I remember we kind of, even a decade ago, kind of voice recognition and kind of natural language processing in the handheld mobile was much more primitive than what we have right now in terms of being able to recognize Indian accent and kind of take actions based upon voice input. So in terms of the commercial applications, we have seen a lot of impact that's been made by these tools. But slowly, I think that people are recognizing that, okay, there is a social dimension to this, and these tools can be potentially used to have a social impact. Now, of course, these commercial applications also have social impact in an indirect sense, but directly can be addressed these issues for social issues using these techniques. Having kind of made kind of looking at the so-called AI for the social good, or kind of using these mathematical tools and techniques for social good. One major, I think, I don't know whether to call it as a challenge, but one major issue that needs to be addressed is one of data. Without data, I think many of the goals that kind of you have set yourself for this kind of research lab is going to kind of I will have to face that issue. Now, in terms of commercial applications, it is a company which is kind of driving this, so they have their own data generation mechanisms and they own the data, and so they work with that. But when you are having kind of a social good as the objective, the data is generated in the field, and the data ownership is widespread. It's kind of dispersed across various organizations. It could be government, it could be kind of NGO, or it could be even private organizations who work on these problems. So the data is widespread. So to be able to kind of tap into those resources to get access to data will be a major challenge. Shiv knows that for his PhD thesis, the kind of challenges that he faced in order to get data from even government organization was significant. But when there actually we were just trying to get data from one single government entity, and that was a major challenge. But now when you are kind of looking at problems in various areas, right? So health, education, or various public policy areas, data is going to be a major challenge kind of in this area. And people do recognize that. There are kind of articles that have been written on that kind of McKinsey report kind of talking about this issue, and there are various articles that's been repeatedly kind of talking about this issue. But that's kind of one major issue. And there are kind of also kind of various at the government level and also private organizations getting into this field, right? So there are kind of research funding sources coming from Microsoft or Google or Amazon who want to provide research funding for using these tools and techniques for social good. So because the potential benefit is significant, and the kind of impact that you can make on the lives of people and the society is significant. So the people recognize the importance of this, but the challenge is one of data. And the other major challenge is in being able to communicate what you do or what you have done to the people who are going to be the potential beneficiaries or people who are going to potentially implement what you do. How did you arrive at these recommendations, right? So I think that the explanation or being able to explain the process, being able to explain your model to the stakeholders is going to be another major challenge, right? Because the technical aspect has been worked on for a significant amount of time. So you have tools and techniques and all the resources that are available. But it's the kind of things like data, things like being able to explain these models. When you build the deep neural network model, how do you explain it? You cannot leave it as a black box and say that my black box told me to do this. So that's not an acceptable thing to say. So how do you kind of communicate these tools and techniques to the potential stakeholders of this research that you are embarking to do? I think that is another area that I think you might have to kind of pay a lot of attention, right? So, and the third major point that I want to, third and last point that I want to highlight is like ethical issues involved in making, working on these problems, right? When you talk about social impact and the data that is coming from the field, kind of how do you make use of the data in an ethical fashion? And also, how do you arrive at a solution which can be ethically defendable, right? So I think that is something which requires a lot of sensitivity and a lot of interaction with the stakeholders to be able to make the research that you are embarking to do to be acceptable, right? So in many cases, even in commercial organizations, these models and tools and techniques face a lot of pushback. We might have a lot of models and predictions from support vector machine or neural network and so on. They will kind of listen to you, but then I come back and say, okay, can we just look at a regression model to begin with? Because that is something that I can understand. I know what it is telling me. But on the other hand, these tools and techniques are still require a lot of convincing. So that challenge is going to be more significant when we are dealing with societal issues, right? So how do you make it acceptable? How do you make it interpretable to the stakeholders, right? So the ethical angle of using the data and how you make the decisions, right? So it has to be equitable, it has to be ethical, it has to be lawful, right? So all those issues are there. So so kind of you have to kind of wrap around these issues and work on kind of problems to arrive at solutions. So I'll kind of stop here. I thought I'll just highlight some of these major challenges that you kind of head on you have to face as you get started with research in this new center. And I want to congratulate I am Visakhapatnam and also Shiv and Professor Chandrasekhar for kind of giving the leadership to kind of to set up such a research center. And it has the best wishes from my side, and I'll be happy to contribute in whichever way that I can. In whatever little way I can contribute, I'll be happy to. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Parthasarathy Ramchandran. It was always always input to all of us to look for the problems that needs to be solved, whether related to ethical aspect or data or related to in terms of communication to the larger stakeholder that. Now I would request Dr. Jai Ganesh invite him to speak on role of data science, AI, ML in the transformation of industry and society. Over to Dr. Jai.
Sure. I have a couple of slides, so I'll quickly share the slides, and I hope you are able to see the screen I'm sharing. Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this panel discussion. I also look forward to working with you and helping nurture this center. I believe this is very, very timely. All the more reason because the country is faced with this pandemic, and given the context in terms of Vizag and the surrounding areas, which Professor Chandrasekhar explained, a center like this can have a multiplier effect, because a prestigious institution like IIM Vizag does something like this, they can have a ripple effect on smaller institutes around you, picking up some of this pattern so that you can have a widespread impact and helping them also. I look forward to being associated and helping in any fashion possible on a personal capacity as well as from the industry as well, because we sit on a lot of data, a lot of computing resources, people. So all those things we can bring to the table to help you. When Shiv asked me to do a quick session, I thought I will bring some industry perspectives in terms of the type of problems and challenges we are trying to solve, both from an R&D and innovation perspective, also from a perspective of helping some of our customers solve these problems. So this is a diagram of what happens or what happened last year in an internet minute. And these numbers are from 2020. I'm sure these numbers have gone up exponentially, given the fact that increasingly in the last 1 year, the adoption of digital and digital technologies have really accelerated. In many cases, 60–70% increase in all the digital content being generated across the world. This is just a snapshot of what happens, of how much of content is created across the world on some of the most commonly used platforms, ranging from Facebook and Netflix or Snapchat or any of the other sources. And this is just the top 10 or 15 sources. There is a long tail, which possibly is much larger than all this content created. So you can see the exponential increase in machine readable content, right? So this is all captured in natural language, and this is all machine readable, exabytes of content, and content is generating every year. So it's almost like we are swimming in data. At the same time, we have a ongoing challenge of good quality data, like Professor mentioned, and the data which is available for researchers to use it and consume it on the fashion where they can have actionable insights. There is information lying across various sources, and there is importantly an opportunity to extract the meaning from these data sources. And by this, I mean not just the popular languages like the most popular spoken languages like English, but I'm talking about all vernacular languages. Like for example, I mentioned about the long tail, all the local content being generated across various local languages in India, and all the locally spoken languages. So there is tremendous opportunity to identify opportunities and extract meaning and give recommendations, uh, be it a farmer recording a message on his or her phone and sending to a central repository, an algorithm understanding what this farmer has spoken, or a picture he or she's taken of a crop infection, and a remote AI algorithm helping him or her solve that problem or identifying the source of the problem are all important areas we can bring to the table to help them, bring the right decision points for them. We are actually talking to some financial institutions who are trying to figure out trying to procure satellite images of farms in India. I'm talking about India, where they are trying to find out what are the best way to help a farmer plant the crops. So they are trying to procure satellite imagery to identify if there is a crop infection or any of those things. So these are all important interventions the technology of today can bring to the table to help the rural communities across India. Uh, there is also an increasing adoption of human-computer interaction. So there are these scenarios which Professor mentioned in terms of the explainability of the AI decision. So there is this entire debate about the bias in the data or the bias in the model people have built it, or there is a bias in terms of the entire interpretation is made. There is a significant need for explainability of all the insights you have generated. There is a need for auditability of the decision, because some of those decisions can be important. For example, giving a loan versus rejecting a loan application can have implications. When a government agency comes to you and asks you, why did you not give the loan to that needy person? So basically, you should be able to do an auditability check and find out which models took those decisions and why those model decisions were taken, which means that there is a lack of trust in AI systems. So therefore, what we are seeing in the industry is a human in the loop type of systems, where you have an AI system which is taking a decision, which is doing a narrow interpretation of the problem at hand. There is also a human working with the AI system to ensure that the decision loopholes which an AI system leaves can be plugged in by a human intervention. There is an increasing role of language in human computer interaction. We all are using our smartphones where we are able to call a Siri in the case of an Apple, or a Google in the case of an Android system, or at home we have Alexa and other systems. So there is an increasing role of language in human computer interaction, and that language, and that interaction is going to play a very, very important role in countries like India, where the literacy rates are not all that high. So you have someone from a rural background not able to read or write, but at the same time, he or she is able to speak on the phone, and that language can be interpreted, that language can be understood, and that distress of that person can be converted to an important policy decision or an intervention by the government agencies. These are all important trends where a center like this can play a very, very critical role in helping improve the lives and livelihoods of many people across India. And an important thing to keep in mind in such a center is the nascent center. There should be a wide network of collaboration which you need to build to make the center successful, because there are mature players out there. For example, there are language interpretation systems from large players like Microsoft and AWS and Google, who are more than happy to license their technology for you. Because we were talking to Microsoft some time back, and they have language interpretation models for several Indian languages. And they do it for a commercial basis for corporate, but I'm sure they must be willing to work with a center like this to help you in some of those research areas for nonprofit. Now, if you look at AI, machine learning, data science, and all the related areas, we all started off with lofty ideals in terms of we are aiming for full-on natural language understanding. We are aiming for participation in spoken languages. We are aiming for talking in one language, the engine translating in another language so that multilingual interfaces can be built. And we are also looking at open domain question answering. We're seeing progress across a number of these areas, but not to the extent we would want to, because we are still several years away from full natural language understanding of systems. But there are several areas where we are seeing significant progress. For example, identifying spam, right? This is an important area where the industry started off with. I remember when 10 years back, the mailboxes we used to have had a lot of spam. Now, if you see today, we hardly get any spam, at least of the type we used to get earlier, right? So there are, intelligent messages masking themselves, spams masking themselves with intelligent messages. But the technology is progress, and a lot of the machine learning we are talking about is brought to bear to solve problems like spam identification or categorizing news articles, document classification in large enterprises, of identifying product information, recommendation system, or even sentiment analysis. So these are all areas we're seeing a lot of progress being made in this by applying data science to solve problems. Now, if you look at the various applications, and I've taken one narrow area of natural language processing and all the language models across the various applications. This is a sort of a look at it from a research R&D perspective. You can look at on the extreme left, which is the mostly solved problems. I'm talking about mostly solved. For example, spam detection is a problem the industry and the academia have solved extensively. Considerable research has gone in. Text categorization in terms of identifying text and classifying them as a text related to sports or business or parts of speech tagging, even named entity recognition or information extraction. These are all problems where the industry and academia have more or less solved the problem. Where we're seeing good progress being made are areas like sentiment analysis, or even co-reference resolution, word disambiguation, syntactic parsing, machine translation. These are all areas where we are seeing significant progress being made. And we believe some of these areas are going to be mature in the near future. Then there are these still really hard problems like semantic search, where you're seeing progress like, for example, Wolfram Analytica, etc., where there is semantic search possibilities. Still not all that mature, but we are seeing progress from a research perspective. Q&A, question answering, natural language questions. It's like the IBM's, the Watson engine, which essentially is sort of cracked the jeopardy for a very, very narrow business scenario. But this is an area enterprise and academic researchers are working extensively from a Q&A solution perspective. Textual inference and paraphrasing is another area. Text summarization is another area. Discourse and dialogue, particularly from chatbots. These are problem areas where the enterprises, industry, and government agencies are trying to solve. I believe some of these areas could be primed for adoption by a center like IDeAL. For some of those problem areas I mentioned earlier, you can pick an existing area which has solved this problem well and build on top of this from an incremental perspective, where you pick up a societal problem and apply an existing technology to solve it. Or you can look at I would say or pick up a slightly longer term blue sky type of a research, where we take an extremely difficult problem. For example, a problem which comes to us when we talk to customers in India is where a mix of languages, people speak in multiple languages in the same sentence. They start the sentence in English, they go to Hindi, and then finally end up talking in a local lingua. So how do you interpret such a question? And this happens in chat engines, it happens in call center transcripts, etc. How do you interpret a sentence which starts in one language and ends in another language? So these are all important areas from an Indian contextual perspective. A center like this can pick up and go around doing fundamental research in this area. And finally, an ambitious target for a center of this type is where we are seeing a significant action in the industry, which is natural language to code. It could look a bit counterintuitive coming from a person in the IT industry, because the moment somebody says natural language to code, essentially it means you're going to take up jobs. So and this is this is a trend we are seeing in the industry, where we are seeing less and less of code being built grounds up. The way we are looking at programming is changing from writing programs to more of assembling programs. We are seeing increasing adoption of intelligent systems which can understand natural language text and generate the right code for it. We are seeing great progress being made over the last few months. There have been several announcements by large companies like Microsoft, from OpenAI, etc., where they have built solutions like Codex, where you can actually tell the engine to do certain action and they will generate a Python or a Java or one of those codes for you. A very, very interesting area. We believe this won't take up jobs. This will actually create more jobs because it will make programming more and more accessible for even the common folks. So this is another area and a great area for job creation in a country like India, where the entry barrier for something like a programming job will drastically come down. Another interesting area for the center to pick up. That's what I have to say from my side, but I believe a center of this type is extremely timely and contextual. And I wish all the best for Shiv and for Stumstricker and the entire Vizag team. I look forward to working with you and helping in any fashion possible. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jay. And like, if you just try to connect so beautiful the problems, some of the challenges that Professor Pasathy mentioned related to those explainability and data. Now, if we talk about it, also connect to the citizen data scientist, whatever I think you were summarizing, but even the person who is the lowest level in the whole value chain of the output of the data science, he is able to contribute to this whole process from, if you see, from the continuum. Thank you so much, Dr. Jay. Now, finally, I would invite our Professor Nagadevra for a formal inauguration. Again, virtually it is possible, sir. And then followed by your inaugural address. I invite Professor Nagadevra to just inaugurate this.
Thank you, Shiv. Let me start with sharing my screen. All right. Yeah, I suppose all of you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
All right. Supposed to click on this and it should launch the website. Great. Okay. All right. Looks excellent. And let's look at some of these. Is it okay if I click on and open some
the bottom, the thirst area, if you click, you'll go to the, yes, the thirst healthcare. If you click on the healthcare, you will go to the page. Yeah, just above or any of those links. Yes.
Oh, okay, here, right. Okay, thirst areas, right. All right. Okay, already some of the papers are already sitting here.
Yeah, we kind of started on this from April onward.
Yeah, that's excellent. All right. Wonderful. All right, looks very good, starting with healthcare to natural resource management and emergency management, computational public policy, cyber physical systems, etc., etc. And can I click on the resources?
Yeah, so this is where our COVID tracker dashboard, if you click, hope that is working. If you click it, it will
Let me click on that. I think I have seen this before.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So,
all right. Okay. Wonderful. Let's get back to the home.
You have to link it up with our
Yes.
website.
All right. Okay. Now this is wonderful, Shiv. Congratulations to the team which set it up at such a short notice. And excellent. Can I stop sharing this now?
Yes.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. All right. First of all, now let me congratulate the IIM Visakhapatnam, Shiv, Professor Chandrasekhar and his team for this great initiative. In the last few years, I have been watching how Visakhapatnam is taking giant steps to become more or less #1 among the baby IIMs, all of those which got started most recently. And the one thing that stands out is faculty from other established IIMs want to come and join IIM Visakhapatnam. I don't think you need any other certification other than that. Actually, that I should place this right at the leadership of Professor Chandrasekhar. I've been saying in the last few years, he is ready to take calculated risks to take the institute to a high position as quickly as possible. The lab, the very title itself is interdisciplinary. I'm very happy about that. Shiv, you need to make sure that the lab doesn't get limited to our decision sciences and the operations area people. What I would really love to see is somebody from organizational behavior. I'm not talking about HR. These days, HR is using a lot of analytics. But the real discipline which needs to use analytics is somebody like OB. Love to see some of these OB people come and do a lot more analytics stuff. So make it really interdisciplinary. One way to make sure of that is all your research projects or consultancy projects will have that kind of an interdisciplinary team drawn from different disciplines. And most important, try to create user cases. This is your great opportunity to get onto, let's say, HBS case library. Everybody is looking for good cases in analytics with a lot of data support. This is your opportunity to do that. One way to do that is, as Jay already mentioned, have this kind of deep collaboration with the industry. One thing I've seen all these years, getting data from the industry is very, very difficult. My usual complaint has always been, industry sits on large amounts of data, but they're afraid to part with it. But at the same time, they don't leverage that data even for their own internal purposes. This is where you can come in. This is where you can come in, telling the companies that we'll maintain your confidentiality of your data. We'll even tell you how to anonymize your data so that, even if it falls in somebody else's hands, there is nothing they can do about it except doing the analytics. So your company's confidentiality will be completely protected. But at the same time, we can also tell you, show you how to leverage that data for your own benefit. That could be one of your points to deal with the industry. You will need a lot of support from the industry. A lot of support from the industry, not only for the data, but the kind of problems they face today. as an academic institution, if you can get the industry issues as they are live today, you can't ask for anything better from the academic side or from your own research point of view. One more suggestion I want to make is set yourself a goal to become completely self-sustaining in a given period of time. I would say in the next 3 years, the center should be completely self-sustaining, generating its own revenue, setting up its own path, quote unquote, should become completely autonomous. The one more service you can do, especially for people in Visakhapatnam and Andhra Pradesh. A lot of institutes are looking for resources in analytics. You can train their faculty to take up appropriate courses in their own management institutes. And if you can go beyond management institutes, nothing like it. Your thrust area, as you said, is the health area, health analytics. And if you can take this health analytics to medical colleges, pharmaceutical colleges, that will be a great service. You are getting into the health analytics at a time when everybody else is also getting into health analytics. Very recently I was sitting in a presentation by one of the consulting companies where they are trying to use artificial intelligence to diagnose various issues within the body, but through looking at the pulse and the kind of waves generated within the body, completely non-invasive way of diagnostics. They're talking about reading the blood pressure without the cuff. Of course, it's nothing new. Today you can buy one of these, what is it, GoQ watch, which will kind of map your blood pressure based on some kind of it can be done. But what these people are talking about is getting much deeper into the body. Since everybody else is also getting into the health analytics, let's look at it more of an opportunity than a threat. You can look at what others are doing, collaborate where your strengths are, work with other like-minded institutions, and contribute together. So the collaboration with so-called competitors can be what is called the co-opetition, cooperative competition. I'm very happy to be part of this initiative. Wish you all the success. And as usual, my services are always available with IIM Visakhapatnam. Thank you for making me a part of this, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Nagadevara, like connecting and summing up and giving some suggestions or a path to lead and make this lab successful, and not only for a short, but always all those short goals and achieving those long-term objectives that what we have, the motivation from which we have started this. Thank you so much for your words and some of those technical aspects. Now I request for Chandrasekhar to present one Memento to all of us.
Let me have the pleasure and privilege of presenting a Memento to the three of you. This is the same picture, so I'm showing only one, but there are three pieces. Shiv will find out the addresses and have it sent across to you. Professor Nagadevara, thank you so very much. Dr. Jay Ganesh, thank you too. Professor Parthasarathi Ramchandran, grateful to you. So this is a picture of Lord Ganesha. It is made of wood, colored wood. It's completely handcrafted. We get it from a local museum called Eastern Art Museum. They do a good job. And a little description about what this picture is about, and these at the back. And we'll have it safely packed and have it sent across to your residences or offices, whichever way you want. So thank you so very much, and grateful to you once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Now I formally, the last part of this program is expressing my thanks to each one of you, Professor Nagadevara, taking your time and gracing this occasion. Dr. Jaganesh, I know morning hours are really busy for you with all those meetings. Thank you so much for taking time out. And Professor Parthasarathi Ramchandran, also, and thank you for also the room at the behind where we have to, where we used to have a long discussion on every week for our problems. So thank you so much, all of you. Along with that, I thank Professor Chandrasekhar for his continuous motivation support for this initiative. Along with that, I'll thank my colleagues also, those who gave the input during my proposal when I was putting forward their inputs and their suggestions. And certainly the students and staff from the admin and the technical, Mr. Kamal, and also Jaya from the admin. Thanks all of you for taking time and making this event successful, and also the future of this lab. Thank you so much.
Sure, just to make a suggestion, why don't we have one lecture starting with the three distinguished panelists that we have here once every month, once every month, focused on the theme and ideals of the IDeAL. If you can have one talk and you make it open to all our faculty, all our students, and anyone outside also. In fact, here we are part of what is called as a higher education planning board in Andhra Pradesh, where all the state universities, all the central institutions, all the central universities are on one platform. So if there is any one event, it goes viral. It goes into the entire educational system of Andhra Pradesh. Universities in turn pass it on to their affiliated colleges, etc. So Shiv, it will be a wonderful opportunity, a great learning opportunity for all the faculty and students. So once a month, starting with the three distinguished professors that we have here, personalities we have here, schedule one every month on a day convenient to them, preferably at a time slot when most of the students are free. PGP students is our mainstay. At a time slot when they have relatively free time, if you can bring that, that will be wonderful. That's my suggestion, and I'm sure we will request them to honor that request and be part of those series as well.
Certainly, sir. Thank you. So I thank you so much for suggestion, and I'll take and we'll connect after. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, guest and student, staff, and director. So we can call off now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All the best to you, Shiv.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, sir.